Welcome to the art of essay. I would like to start with my motto, that an effective personal statement can get your child into almost any school. I believe that with all my heart. Year after year, students come to me with mediocre grades, lackluster SAT or ACT scores, and by helping them write a one-of-a-kind work of art as their personal statement, they get into their top choice colleges. So that's why this is my personal motto. In today's lecture, we're going to be talking about tone. In particular, how to vary your syntax to shift and establish tone throughout your essay. Syntax is just how you arrange your words on the paper. And the tone is the attitude of the writer. Just as you have tone in your voice, like my tone is energetic and enthusiastic, hopeful, or it can be plaintive and fearful, right? Just as you convey your verbal tone, you can do so through your writing. Why does tone matter? Well, it conveys vital information to the reader, just as verbal tone conveys vital information to the listener. If I say stop as you're about to walk into traffic, it could save your life. I'm giving you a verbal cue that is very important. Likewise, when you're writing, you're giving a written cue to the reader to stop and pay attention to something that matters a great deal to you. In the brainstorming process, I ask students about incidents and events that shape their life. In particular, I ask about incidents of surprise, trauma, conflict, awkwardness, crisis, love, joy, and courage. Well, the best way to express those different emotions is through your tone. By shifting your tone, you can show surprise. You can demonstrate how you felt during a moment of crisis or trauma. You can express love and courage. Tone can delineate the structural elements of your essays. Sorry, what can tone do, not why can tone do. Your essay should have some rising action, some climax, and some crisis resolution. And your tone tells the reader, hey, you've now entered this structural element of the essay. We're now in the crisis moment, or we're resolving that crisis. And you do so through your tone. Why does it matter? Well, effective use of tone can make the reader stop, slow down, and pay attention to the main issue, the main point, the main aspect of your personal philosophy or psychology that you're trying to convey. And for that reason, it's of critical import to have control over your tone. You need to have clear intention. Think of the soundtrack of a film. One of my favorite directors is John Carpenter. He also does the soundtrack for each of his films, right? When there's moments of tension, and it tells the viewer, oh my gosh, this is how I should be feeling. Likewise, your tone is telling the reader the emotional response that you wish them to have. All right. So you need to have clear intention behind your choice of tone if you want to move the reader. Well, how do you establish and shift tone? Well, there's four main ways we're going to be talking about in today's lecture. First way is through your verb choice. Second is through your pronoun use, the point of view, and we've lumped the sentence structure, punctuation, and grammatical complexity as the syntactical elements of tone. All right, so we're going to be looking at 2 paragraphs from a sample essay and demonstrating how, by using these 4 particular techniques, the writer has been able to shift tone effectively and establish tone very well. Here's the first paragraph. You try to make me feel small, colorless, but I'm on to you. You relentlessly try to plant the seed of insecurity in my growing mind and shower me with false versions of myself to weaken my self-esteem. It won't work. I know myself well enough. I love myself well enough not to fall for your lies. Without me, you're empty, you call out in your sharp voice. Gain yourself through me, you announce to the world. I'll construct my identity without your input. Thank you. You brutally compare me to others who have given in to you. You show me pictures of other women, better dressed, brighter teeth, whiter skin, clutching your hand as they parade down the red carpet of your false dream. Look what you're missing out of, you hiss at me from within your luxurious cage. I stuff up my ear holes against your song of seduction and see you for who you are, a merchant of distorted fantasies. Very powerful. Well, let's just look at the verbs. Verbs can dictate the tone of an essay more than any other part of speech or grammatical structure. It's like the gas pedal of your sentence. It can speed it up. It can move to the left or right, or it can idle and allow you to focus in on just one element very, very meticulously. Dynamic active verbs, they tend to create tension, highlight conflict, or show anger, as they do in this essay. Linking verbs should generally be reserved for making a philosophical statement. Generally it's a little bit less emotional and it's devoid of some of the intensity that active verbs have. So what I want to do is look at the active verbs versus the linking verbs in the essay that I just showed you, the 2 paragraphs. And I think you'll be surprised. There are 4 linking verbs in the whole passage that I read you. And they generally appear in more philosophical lines. You look at what you are, but I am this way. Now, but look at the verbs that are highlighted in red. You shower, you clutch, parade, stuff, hiss. Right? Those are like, again, think of a Beethoven symphony. Bam! 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 Those are those moments of heightened intensity and emotional valence. So just by the use of her verbs, such as clutch, parade, hiss, stuff, shower, she's able to show tension, anger, and denote combat that she's having. So that's how I want you in your essay to go through and highlight your verbs and say, okay, what emotion am I trying to convey by this particular verb? And if you don't know, and if it isn't clear, then you probably should change the verb. And if you have too many linking verbs, especially in the hook or in the thesis lines, you probably should consider revising those and putting active verbs in. Linking verbs should be reserved for very, very, very few instances where you're revealing something about your philosophy. So highlight the verbs just as I've done, and challenge each one to make sure that each is conveying the tone that you wish to achieve. All right, now we're going to talk about pronoun use, the second technique of these 4 in establishing and shifting tone. Pronouns can draw the reader in or thrust her away very effectively. In particular, introducing the pronoun you into your sentence creates a very intimate, immediate tone. It's as if you've just called the reader by her name and said, hey, you, please pay attention. I'm saying something that's pertinent to you, that's between us. The point of this is to move the reader, is to make a very powerful impact on the reader. And very few techniques can do that more effectively than the use of you. Also, you're trying to highlight aspects of your personality, right? We have a whole gamut of emotions and thoughts and experiences. The use of you and me, those 2 pronouns, the dialectic between those 2, can highlight and accentuate different aspects of your personality very effectively. And I'd like to show how she does that, in particular by using you and me. Those are the 2 primary pronouns she uses. She uses they once, and this and it once, but the rest of the time there's this dialectic between you and me. You try to make me, but I'm on to you. You, it's like this tug of war, back and forth. Right? And it creates the tone of tension. It creates a tone of combat. It creates, who is she talking to? It creates a tone of mystery. There's just her use of pronouns, in particular her use of you and me, allows for this very intense drama to unfold. Again, as you've done with your verbs, I would ask you put me on pause now. Go back to your essay right now. Highlight all your pronouns. And if you don't have a clear reason why you've chosen a particular pronoun, then challenge it and consider swapping it out for you or me or something that's more immediate. Often we're taught in school not to use these sort of pronouns. Well, I say disregard that particular advice, because this is a technique that will transform your essay into one that will move the reader. Okay. As I mentioned, the back and forth between you and me creates tension and it creates suspense. Who exactly is she talking to? The reader wants to find out. Again, if your intent is to excite the reader and get the reader intrigued, well, what better way to do so than through your pronoun use? So we've talked about verbs, now we've talked about pronouns. And the third thing we're talking about is point of view. I strongly encourage you to consider using different points of view in your essay. Of the 30,000 essays this reader is probably going to read this year, very few, very, very few have a unique point of view, meaning besides just I did this or this is what happened, right? In the essay, this young lady is writing from her point of view, and she's talking to an advertisement. Right there, I revealed the secret, right? You probably didn't know that, and that's okay. It's okay if the reader doesn't really know early on who you're addressing. That's fine, because she's really talking to aspects of her own personality. Everything pertains to her personality, her philosophy, her psychology. But imagine that same essay if it were written from the point of view of the handbag that she's talking to. Okay, instead of you show me this, or this is I'm being carried down the street of your broken dreams and people are covetously looking at me and someone tries to swipe me. And so now you can include all sorts of different themes about abandonment, about loss, about differentiation between you and others. And there's a whole slew of different themes you can show and a whole different tone that you would establish just by shifting your point of view. That's why just shifting your point of view can transform your essay into something that moves the reader, that sets you apart, and establishes this as a poignant work of art. All right, and shifting the point of view changes almost every aspect of the essay's tone. Feel free to choose multiple points of view even within the same essay. Right? Imagine if paragraph 1, she's talking to the advertisement. Paragraph 2, the advertisement's talking back to her. Or an element or an observer is watching her talk to the advertisement. It'd be very fascinating to see those different points of view, and each one shifts tone very dramatically. Lastly, we're going to be talking about sentence structure. Sentences are like lines of music. Long, languid lines with little rise or fall are bound to convey a sense of serenity, placidity, confidence. Short lines punctuated with a staccato of sharp punctuation marks and powerful verbs is bound to make the reader stand up and pay attention. Again, think of your favorite song and where it slows down, where it speeds up. Well, that's exactly what your sentences should do. Each one is a line of music. All right, so too with sentences. By varying the length and structure, you can convey different emotions. Now look what she does here. She juxtaposes these short declarative sentences with these longer, more grammatically complex ones. You relentlessly try to plant the seed of insecurity in my growing mind and shower me with false versions of myself to weaken my... It won't work. I know myself well enough, semicolon. I love myself well enough not to fall for your lies. Look how those longer, more complex lines, they're bookends around, and they surround this it won't work. I mean, you can see it, and the reader can hear it very clearly. In the second paragraph, before I get to that, doing so by surrounding it by more complex sentences, you really accentuate the power and the point that you're trying to make in the shorter sentences, and you actually accentuate the meaning of both. It's always good if you're going to have a short 3 or 4 word sentence to have it followed by one that has a semicolon. Because you don't want the reader to think that you're lazy. You want the reader to know that you've intentionally chosen a very short declarative sentence. And if you, again, simple, clear writing is useful and important, but also showing the full range of your grammatical ability is important as well. That's why following one with a short sentence with a semicolon is good. Now look what she's done at the end. Likewise, leading up to a very powerful line with a colon is good too. The last line here, I stuff up my ear holes against your siren song of seduction and see you for who you are, a merchant of distorted fantasies. You're leading up to that powerful moment of decisive thesis. The truth of this essay comes out in a short declarative sentence after the colon. And look what, after the initial line that she starts the sentence, you brutally compare me to others, okay, declarative, simple sentence. You show me pictures of other women, better dressed, brighter teeth, whiter skin, right? The contrast, again, think of a Beethoven piece, all of a sudden, that both are rendered much more effectively, simply by varying the syntax of both. All right. The short, simple sentences are rendered much more poignant by the more syntactically complex ones that surround them. So we've covered these 4 techniques today. I urge you to employ all in your essay to shift tone. We're just talking about one aspect of your essay, the tone. Doing so will help your essay stand out, move the reader, and help you get into the college of your dreams. And it will transform your essay into one-of-a-kind work of art. I thank you for joining me today. This has been a presentation of The Art of Essay.